You were deceived. Since childhood, you were taught that to be desired, you had to please, be kind, be polite, be good. They pushed this narrative on you as absolute truth, and you believed it. And that's why today, even though you're a nice guy, you're ignored, rejected, and traded for men who don't even make an effort. What no one told you is that female attraction doesn't follow the logic of justice, it follows the logic of selection. And in this process, being nice isn't enough, because she's not interested in yet another polite man trying to win her heart. She's biologically programmed to be attracted to something much rarer: presence, aesthetics, and inner power. And that's why this video isn't for the fragile. It's not for those who need comfort. It's not for those who want to continue believing the sweet lie that keeps them mediocre. This video is a war manual. Hack 1. Self-image and focus. The invisible magnetism they feel? You want to know what's really scary? It's not rejection. It's not the no. What should chill you to the core is the number of women who have already mentally eliminated you without you even realizing it. Not a word was spoken, not a glance exchanged, nothing. And yet, game over. Because in the silent war of attraction, you lose without even knowing you were playing. Most men think seduction begins when you open your mouth. That it's about what you say, how you start a conversation, how creative you are in your flirting. But this is the biggest illusion peddled by internet gurus. Real seduction begins before you speak, before you look, before you gesture. It begins when you simply exist in a room and she notices you, or worse, doesn't notice you. And what does she capture there? Your self-image. But calm down. We're not talking about self-esteem, that watered-down concept that Instagram psychologists love to repeat as if it were a magic formula. True self-image doesn't reside in affirmations on the mirror. It's imprinted in your body language, your mental posture, and most importantly, your focus. Think about it. You walk into a supermarket, a common place, shopping carts, cold lighting, generic background music, no seduction. And yet, that's where the magic happens. A woman watches you. Maybe from afar, maybe up close, and in 3 seconds she's already unconsciously processed more information than you could express in a 20-minute conversation. She looks at the way you walk, where your eyes land, if you're seeking validation or focused, if you seem driven or just wandering, and if you're walking aimlessly with your head down, an anxious expression, seemingly lost. She senses it and tunes out. No hate, no judgment, no second chances. Because here's the hard truth. Women don't fall for people who are trying to get noticed. They're attracted to people who are already moving, to people who already have such a strong inner world that they don't seem to need anyone else, even if they want to. And that's the first fatal mistake. You try to attract attention when you should be impossible to ignore. You know what's even crazier? In 1943, Abraham Maslow explained this in his hierarchy of needs. Before love comes security. And security isn't what you promise, it's what you radiate. A man focused on his actions, a man who isn't concerned with being seen, but rather with doing what needs to be done, exudes precisely that primitive security that the female subconscious seeks. She doesn't know why, but she feels it. And if you think this is just market talk or party talk, think of Napoleon. One of the most feared men in history, short, unconventional, but with a self-image so gigantic that he ruled empires. He didn't need to convince anyone he was great. He acted as if he were, and the whole world treated him as such. Self-image shapes the social mirror. What you believe about yourself, the world interprets as true, as long as your actions confirm it. And therein lies the trap. Many men try to appear confident. They force a posture, a tone of voice, an attitude. But everything falls apart with the lost look, the anxious speech, the unsteady gesture. Because focus can't be faked. It only exists when there's internal intention. When you're truly present, when you know what you want, when you're not seeking validation but rather pursuing a personal mission, it shows. You don't need to speak. Your body speaks for you. Nietzsche said, "He who has a strong enough why can bear any how." And this why is what shapes your presence. A man without focus is a man without purpose, and a man without purpose is invisible. Because the world, and especially women, can sense when someone is simply existing versus when someone is living with intention. But this brings with it a delicious contradiction. The less you try to be desired, the more desirable you become. because your value no longer depends on her reaction. You turn the tables. She realizes you're not there out of desperation, need, or necessity. You're there by choice. And this triggers the emotional competition instinct, the famous, "Why isn't he trying to impress me?" And that's when curiosity turns to fascination. Let's go deeper. Imagine a man organizing his appointments, his plans, his day. He's not thinking about attracting someone, he's simply focused. But this focus generates a vibration, an energetic frequency that communicates, "I am complete. I am enough on my own. And if you want to be part of my world, you'll have to bring something worthwhile." This isn't arrogance. It's a high standard. And now comes the painful part. Most men who lack this try to compensate. With jokes, with nervousness, with neediness disguised as kindness. They try to please. They ask too many questions, and in the process, they give away the one thing they shouldn't, their own power. The woman may even be polite, she may even smile. But deep down, she already understands. She's already classified, because deep down she realizes, this man is asking for attention. And attention is never begged for. Attention is earned, or rather, it is imposed, not by force, but by focus. And here's the hack no one talks about. The man who becomes magnetic isn't the one who studies pre-made phrases. It's the one who is so absorbed in his mission that his energy becomes a gravitational field. And this manifests itself in every detail, in his walk, his breathing, his posture, his silence. Yes, especially in his silence. Because a man who doesn't fill the void with nervous words demonstrates comfort in his own space. This is attraction in its raw form. And this also explains why so many men call themselves good guys and yet are ignored. Because it's not about being good. It's about being whole, being solid. A lost good guy is just a polite boy. Now, a focused good guy with direction, clarity, self-control, that's dangerous. That's magnetic. And the beauty of this hack is that it doesn't depend on anyone. It doesn't require money, genetics, or status. It only requires an internal repositioning. A mental shift where you stop searching and start building. You move from hunting mode to creation mode. You become the prize. And ironically, that's when the game changes. Because she'll notice, and she'll feel it. Even if she doesn't say it, even if she tries to resist. The mystery of a focused man, who isn't trying to impress, who lives his mission intensely. This man is like an unread book, and women love untold stories. So before worrying about approaches, techniques, phrases, or forced charisma, look within. Ask yourself, where is your focus? What moves you? Do you live to be noticed or to truly live? The answer shapes your self-image, and your self-image shapes everything, including the next hack. And this is where the surface begins to crack. Because while your self-image is constructed internally, there's something you convey externally, and that directly impacts women's unconscious desire, your aesthetic. And no, we're not talking about beauty, we're talking about style. And style, unlike beauty, can be shaped, and that's exactly what we're going to decode now. Hack 2. Style and aesthetics. The image that commands respect style is aesthetics in a state of silent war. And the battlefield is the first second she sees you. In that fraction of time, before you even say anything, your image has already told the whole story. Who you are, how much you value yourself, and whether she should take you seriously. And the most tragic thing is that most men don't even realize they've lost before they even enter the field. There's a deeply ingrained, almost pathetic, belief that looks don't matter, that it's the substance that counts. But the real world doesn't operate on idealized justice. It operates on perception. And aesthetics is the primary language of human perception. It's not vanity, it's an evolutionary strategy. We are programmed to attribute value to what appears to have value. And this isn't about being beautiful. It never has been. What magnetizes isn't beauty. It's how you present yourself to the world. It's mastering the visual as a tool of influence. And herein lies the brutal secret. Women grasp this with surgical precision. While you think you're just dressed normally, she's scanning the shape, the cut, the texture, the color palette, the drape of your clothes, the balance between what you show and what you hide. And every detail sends a message. You either convey command or submission. And here the first contradiction arises. Men think that investing in appearance is a woman's thing. And so, most of them dress like teenagers at the end of the market. Baggy t-shirts, faded pants, 5-year-old sneakers. This isn't being simple. It's abdicating unconscious respect. Because clothing isn't just fabric, it's language, and poorly spoken language generates noise, rejection, and invisibility. The philosopher Roland Barthes said that clothing is a system of signs. Every aesthetic choice communicates something. If you wear a well-fitting shirt in a sober color, you communicate structure, presence, and care. If you wear anything but wrinkled, casual, childish, you communicate internal disorder. It's almost a visual trick. The right style puts you in a higher emotional category before the interaction even begins. And if you think this is superficial, you've already lost. Because the female mind works with extremely fast emotional filters. And aesthetics is the #1 filter. The color of your shirt can trigger an emotional memory in her that you'll never understand. The cut of your blazer can put her in a receptive state before the conversation begins. This is neurology, not guesswork. Let's get to the invisible codes. First, fit. Clothes that fit you well are a game changer. And no, this doesn't mean a suit or luxury. It means fit. Jeans that flatter your body shape, a t-shirt that molds your shoulders without looking clingy, a jacket that imposes structure, not volume. The difference between an average man and a visually dominant man is 2 centimeters of fabric. Yes, it's subtle, and that's why it's fatal. Second, color palette. Color psychology is a weapon that 99% of men ignore. Dark colors convey seriousness, reliability, and power. Black, navy blue, olive green, brown, burgundy. These hues create an aura of presence. And it's not about looking prettier, it's about looking more competent, more solid, more mysterious. Now compare that to the guy in neon yellow in a childish graphic t-shirt. There's no dispute. Third, visual hygiene. And I'm not talking about bathing. I'm talking about clean aesthetics, smooth, well-kept, pressed clothes. A look that conveys intention, not sloppiness. Women interpret sloppiness as emotional carelessness. If you don't take care of your own image, what's stopping you from being sloppy in everything else? And here comes a powerful irony. It's not about spending a lot, it's about understanding a lot. You can buy every piece in your wardrobe at the cheapest store in town, as long as you know what to choose. And that choice starts with the cut, the fit, the visual coherence between what you wear and the energy you want to convey. A look aligned with your self-image creates congruence, and congruence generates magnetism. But there's an even deeper point. Style is also identity. And identity isn't something you discover, it's something you build. And when you build your own style, based on sobriety, strength, and visual clarity, you stop being confused with the crowd. You become a main character. A man with aesthetic presence is never just another one. And this presence, when combined with silence and focus, becomes brutally seductive. Because a woman looks and doesn't know exactly why, but feels that you know who you are, that you're not asking for attention or approval. You simply exist with aesthetics and dominance. And that, to the female subconscious, is irresistible. This logic can be seen in any cultural icon. James Bond, for example, isn't just the secret agent. He is the archetype of the visually controlled man. Every outfit he wears communicates dominance, mystery, and calculated coolness. Nothing is accidental, and this shapes desire, because desire is activated by stimulation, and the right style is a high-voltage stimulus. And here comes the most overlooked aspect, the symmetry between body and clothing. Many men want to appear stronger, larger, more masculine, and they end up exaggerating the proportions. They wear baggy, unstructured pieces, claiming comfort. But aesthetic comfort isn't about being oversized, it's about contouring. When you wear something that enhances your features, you automatically communicate strength effortlessly. And this connects directly with the primal feminine instinct. Studies in evolutionary psychology have shown that women are more attracted to men with broad shoulders, a proportionate waist, and an erect posture. But you don't have to be born with this. You can visually simulate it with well-cut clothes, intentional posture, and choosing pieces that create structure. Jackets with discreet shoulder pads, pants that elongate the legs, shirts that emphasize the torso. This is where style ceases to be clothing and becomes a social weapon. And the cruelest part, while you ignore this, other men are already using this weapon against you. Silently, without needing to verbally compete. They enter a room and gain attention before they even open their mouths. And if you try to compete with the argument, you've already lost. because she's already decided who will listen and who will ignore. But there's something even more sophisticated, a style that hides as much as it reveals, the power of visual suggestion. When you wear something minimalist, well-tailored, with a sober palette, you create a mystery, a field of interpretation. She begins to wonder, who is this guy? What's his deal? Why does he seem so focused? This is the art of suggestion. And suggestion is always more powerful than explanation. Nietzsche said that the man of value is the one who knows what he wants to say, but remains silent. In the aesthetic realm, this translates into clothing that communicates everything. Without saying anything, the woman looks and feels, and the more she feels without understanding, the closer she gets. That's the secret. And here, closing this silent weapon, lies the great turning point. Style, when used well, doesn't just attract, it filters. It separates those who are ready for your level and those who still can't see beyond the surface. Style is selection. And strategic men understand that being desired by everyone is less valuable than being respected by those who matter. And if you doubt this, observe the pattern. The best-dressed men aren't the vainest, they're the most lethal. Because they know, in the social game, whoever dominates the aesthetic dominates the narrative. And whoever dominates the narrative dominates desire. But there's something even more powerful than mastering the narrative. It's not depending on it. It's living as if your value is so evident, so unshakable, that you don't need to force it, or explain yourself, or compete. And this brings us to the next hack. A hack that defies all the logic of conquest and destroys the biggest mistake 99% of men make. Acting as if she's the only option, when in fact, you should act as if you're the one choosing. And that's exactly what you're going to learn now. Hack 3. Abundance mentality. The subtle arrogance that enchants. There's a category of man who never chases, and yet he's never alone. He doesn't beg, he doesn't test, he doesn't insist, he observes, he chooses. And if you think this is the preserve of rich, handsome, or famous men, you're sorely mistaken. What this man possesses, what makes him impossible to ignore, is a rare, powerful, and silent mindset, the abundance mindset. But let's get straight to the point. Most men act as if a single woman is their chance for salvation. It's as if she's the last drop of water in an emotional desert. This invisible scarcity manifests itself in every gesture, in the haste with which he responds to a message, in the hesitation when making decisions, in the anxiety when she takes a while to respond. This isn't attraction. This is emotional submission. And women sense it, they feel it, and they pull away. Because here's one of the most brutal truths you've never heard directly. When you demonstrate that you're willing to fight for a place in her world, you automatically move from the position of leader to that of follower. You nullify yourself in exchange for attention. And everything that comes from need dies in despair. Now, the man with the abundant mindset, he's not competing with other men. He's competing with his own level of demand. He doesn't act as if any woman is the prize, because he knows he is the world she can visit if he's up to it. And that's not arrogance. That's clarity of value. Let's take an example. Two men approach the same woman. One approaches with eager enthusiasm, overly complimenting, trying to please, trying to convince. The other observes, chatting as if he's just passing the time. He's relaxed, curious, but doesn't give up his center. He's not trying to win. He just is. Guess which one occupies her mind longer? This second man understood something few realize. A man's perceived value is proportional to his ability to not depend on the outcome. When you act as if you don't need a yes, your no becomes more valuable. And no is as powerful a weapon of attraction as a yes. Because it commands respect. It imposes emotional scarcity. It imposes a standard. Nietzsche said, "He who has a reason to live can bear almost any how." But in the game of seduction, we could rephrase it, he who has a reason to choose can bear any rejection. Because rejection isn't an end, it's just a sorting process. And the man who knows this never despairs. He's grateful for the clarity and moves on, as if he has options, because he does. The contradiction here is beautiful. You don't need to have 1,000 women around you to have an abundance mentality. You just need to live as if none are more important than your peace, your focus, and your goals. And when a woman realizes that you won't change your route for her, that she can enter but never drive, something inside her ignites curiosity, respect, desire. And this activates what I call the magnetic paradox. The man who attracts you most is the one who needs you least. This doesn't mean being cold, distant, or insensitive. It means that your life goes on, with or without her. That your happiness doesn't depend on her presence. That you are complete. And this completeness is the most powerful aphrodisiac there is. But let's go deeper. What fuels scarcity? Fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being validated. Fear of not being enough. And this fear is what contaminates your language, your posture, your energy. It's what makes you accept less than you deserve, tolerate disrespect, and remain silent in the face of behavior that violates your principles. Now, the abundant man, he doesn't fear loneliness. He understands that being alone is better than being in bad company. He doesn't sell himself for a little attention. He doesn't trade his values for a beautiful body. Because he knows, anything that requires losing yourself isn't worth the price. And here comes the most overlooked detail. A woman notices this in the smallest gestures. When you don't respond immediately, when you don't crumble in the face of rejection, when you listen more than you speak, when you observe instead of flattering, she senses she's in the presence of someone rare, a man who won't beg, a man who, if he's there, is there by choice, not necessity. And that, my friend, changes everything. You go from being just another person to becoming a doubt, an unanswered question, a mystery. Because she begins to wonder, why isn't he trying to please me like the others? Why does he seem so focused? What does he have that the rest don't? And the answer is simple. He has himself. And this activates a devastating psychological mechanism. Reverse validation. The less you seem to need her, the more she wants to prove she deserves your attention. And then you turn the whole game around. You go from being the hunter to the prize. And that prize, when well placed, is worth far more than any effort. But be careful. Don't confuse this with games. An abundance mentality isn't about manipulation. It's not about feigning disinterest. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about truly being difficult to impress. It's about having standards. It's about not giving up yourself to fit into someone else's world. Because the man who lives to please is the same one who later complains about being used. Want practical proof? Recall a time when you were completely focused on a personal goal. Maybe a professional goal, a physical challenge, a personal project. You were so focused that you didn't even think about women. And guess what? That's exactly when people started noticing you. Because your energy was focused inward. You didn't give off any signs of need. You were whole. You were magnetic. And it's this state you need to cultivate constantly. A state of construction, of expansion, of internal leadership. Where the woman enters as a consequence, not as an objective. Where the relationship emerges as a bonus, not as an anchor. Where you share your life, but never hand over the helm. And here Stoic philosophy comes in. Seneca said, true wealth is needing nothing. And when we talk about emotional abundance, this applies perfectly. A man who needs little emotionally becomes very difficult to manipulate. He is free, and emotional freedom is power. But there's one more detail. This mindset also protects you. It prevents you from falling into emotional traps, from falling in love with potential instead of reality, from projecting your needs onto someone you barely know. When you see yourself as abundant, you select, you observe, you filter. And that's not coldness, it's emotional intelligence. And yes, she will test this, she will provoke, she will take her time responding, she will see how long you can take. Because she needs to know if you're the real deal. And it's precisely in these tests that most men crumble. They beg, they pressure, they try to regain attention, and they lose. The man of abundance, he simply disappears. Not out of revenge, but by default. Because he doesn't trade his peace, he doesn't trade his energy, he doesn't trade his dignity for a little feminine presence. And that's what makes you unforgettable. So now I ask you, what is your price? How much of your energy do you give to be validated? How much of your focus do you sacrifice to be noticed? If the answer is a lot, you're still living in scarcity. But if you're willing to change that, if you're ready to be the man who chooses, not the one who begs, then you've already taken the first step. And the beauty of this transformation is that it doesn't need applause. No one needs to know. You simply change from within. You align yourself, and the world responds. You begin to walk more confidently, speak more calmly, breathe with more presence, because you understand everything you need is already within you, and it's this understanding that seals your worth. Because when you don't depend on external approval to feel complete, you become the kind of man no woman can ignore, even if she tries. Now imagine this combined with the other two hacks: a powerful self-image, impeccable aesthetics, and an abundance mindset. This doesn't just make you desirable, it makes you dangerous. A man who masters these three pillars doesn't just play the game, he changes it. And that's where we enter the most decisive moment. Because now that you have these weapons, the only question that matters is, will you use them or continue to be discarded without even knowing why? The choice is yours.